most of the projections for the mock drafts have the quarterback, at least the quarterback class here, as one of the deepest in recent years, and it looks like a lot of the mock drafts are now projecting quarterbacks to go 1, 2, and 3 in the NFL draft. JJ McCarthy's rising up draft rankings, so now it looks like he's going to be a first round pick as well. So that would make 4. There are a lot of people that love Bo Nix and think that Bo Nix could end up being a first round pick. So they're projecting somewhere between 4 to 5. And even I don't think Michael Penix will be a first round pick. I like Michael Penix, but he could be thrown in there too if a team gets desperate up and maybe his team wants to move up into the first round because they're afraid he's going to be off the board. I know Seattle makes a lot of sense because they have the former Washington Grubb, the former Washington offensive coordinator, who is now the offensive coordinator there at Seattle. So that would make a lot of sense, especially in the area. You can already have a bridge quarterback there in Geno Smith, who will be a mentor for him, be running the same system. So familiarity in the same area, essentially, because Seattle and then playing in Washington. So you're playing in the same city. So there's a lot of talk that could happen. And if Seattle is afraid that he's going to get drafted in the first round, late in the first round, and they could decide, hey man, he's going to be our first round pick. Or if they do draft somebody else, then maybe they want to trade back into the first round to get that guy if they're afraid somebody's going to take him. So anyway, my point is, if there's a chance you could get 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round, because you got a lot of teams that are obviously needy for the quarterback position. So there have been 3 times in the common era draft where 3 quarterbacks have been taken in the top 3 picks, 1, 2, and 3. It happened in 2021, most recently, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance. And I think we've been talking recently about that 2021 draft. Trevor Lawrence with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Wilson hasn't been traded yet. I don't know what's happening with Zach Wilson or if he will be traded. Right now, I guess they may wait till after the draft to trade him. Like, what's the point in trading him now?
Yeah.
But Trey Lance, who went 3rd overall, traded for a 4th round pick. And then we know about the Justin Fields recent trade for a 6th round pick. And Mac Jones was traded for a 5th round pick. So the 2021 class is supposed to be deep, but now only one of those quarterbacks out of those 5 that were taken in the first round worked out. Only one of the 5. It's talking about a 20% hit rate there. And out of those top 3 that were taken with the top 3 picks in the NFL draft of 2021, only Trevor Lawrence has worked out. It happened in 1999. Tim Couch, Donovan McNabb, and Achilles Smith. Donovan McNabb is probably the only one that we would say worked out of those top 3 picks, all taken with quarterbacks. And 1971, this one actually was pretty good. Jim Plunkett, Archie Manning, Dan Pastorini. 1971.
Yeah.
So, but that one actually that's not bad. But your chances, and this is a shout out to NFL research because this is where I got this actual stat. If you look at first round quarterbacks in a common era draft since 1967, 130 quarterbacks have been drafted in the first round since 1967. 61 of those 130 have won a playoff game as a starter. That's 46%. 58 of the 130 quarterbacks have made a Pro Bowl. That's around 45%. So around 45 to around 40, and then you round up 47% of your quarterbacks who were drafted in the first round either won a playoff game or made a Pro Bowl. And if you go look at the breakdown about where they were drafted in the first round, top 5 quarterbacks made a Pro Bowl 60% of the time. Top 10 quarterbacks made a Pro Bowl. We're talking about first round quarterbacks here, historically, in the history of the NFL draft since 1967. 54% of top 10 quarterbacks made at least one Pro Bowl. 53% of top 15. So basically, there's no difference between their top 10 quarterback and the top 15 quarterbacks, what they're saying in terms of making a Pro Bowl. There is a significant difference in the top 5 quarterbacks. If you look at first round quarterbacks overall, I just broke that down to you. That was 45% of them made the Pro Bowl. Playoff wins, if you go look at top 5 quarterbacks, 54% of them won a playoff game. If you look at top 10 quarterbacks, 50% of them won a playoff game. Look at top 15, 49% of them won a playoff game. And if you're looking at just first round quarterbacks overall, as we pointed out, 47% of them won a playoff game. So The first round is where you get your quarterback, where your faces of your franchise, where you get your elite quarterbacks, your QB1s. But the NFL is still really bad at drafting them. How about this stat? And this is, like I said, mind blowing. From 2021 to 2022, there have been 19 quarterbacks selected in the NFL draft. Period.
Yeah.
Right, in its entirety. Only 2 of the 19 are expected to start week 1 of the NFL season. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I mean,
Brock Purdy and Trevor Lawrence. Those are the only quarterbacks drafted from 2021 to 2022. The other 19 quarterbacks, they're expected to start week 1. It's really tough to find a quarterbacks. Sometimes you hit. I mean, think about that 2020 draft. It was great. Joe Burrow, Tua, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, now great, and Jalen Hurts. All the quarterbacks, top 10 quarterbacks in that draft were awesome. But you go look at the 2021 quarterback class that we talked about. It's a disaster. Only one of those quarterbacks worked out. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones. None of those guys worked out.
And Trevor Lawrence is somebody that people will say hasn't necessarily reached the level that he's supposed to reach yet either. Like, he was supposed to be the guy, and there's still questions in Jacksonville that if he's really going to be the guy to take him to that next level.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, the 2022 class also, I mean, that was pretty much a disaster too, right? Kenny Pickett was the only one in the first round. He was traded. Desmond Ridder traded. Titans quarterback, Malik Willis. I think he's like 3rd with them.
They drafted Matt quarterback the next year. That's how bad Malik Willis. They immediately went and got Will Levis the next year.
Exactly. And, Sam Howell's probably the best of that group, and even he's been traded. I think Bailey Zappi is still with the Patriots as QB2. But it just shows you the NFL is not getting better at evaluating QBs and projecting QBs and building these offensive systems around the skill set of the quarterback, being able to mitigate their weaknesses and being able to highlight their strengths. The NFL is not getting better at this. Is what's kind of, I think, troubling, is that you would think they would get better at quarterback evaluation. They're not. And I know why they're not. Is it because the NFL is too stubborn and they try to turn this into a science? But when you go look at the last 10 draft cycles, there have been 30 quarterbacks drafted in the first round, according to Albert Breer. 11 of them, and that includes Zach Wilson, are currently still with the team that drafted him. And so it's that basically you're looking at a 30% hit rate, and you say 30% rate of quarterbacks you're willing to reinvest in or to double down on in terms of that investment. So I think that the strange thing is that the NFL, they are getting worse, some people would argue, at quarterback evaluation. And there's a quarterback evaluation issue in the NFL. And I think it is hurting a lot of quarterbacks. I think that's why you are seeing some of these quarterback resurrections happen, because they're off in either their evaluation of quarterbacks sometimes, like Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith, or the coaches aren't willing. They're not willing to be patient enough. We know the NFL doesn't have patience, or they're not willing to be flexible enough and creative enough to build the system around the strength of the QB.
Yeah. I think that's where you look at, in the draft, and this is pretty much in every sport, you judge floor and ceiling on these guys. You say, what's the worst they could be and what's the best they could be? And at some point in the quarterback market, and I think it's because there is no patience, and general managers and coaches know, if I don't have a quarterback, I don't keep my job. It's that simple. So I have to get one. And I can't go, I need a quarterback with a high floor, because if the ceiling's not high enough, I'm still fired. So I need the highest ceiling I can find. Screw the floor. I don't care if there is no floor, but I need real high ceilings. And so they draft for guys on ceilings, forgetting the fact that, well, that'll tank you real quick if the floor is 25 interceptions a season. So you have to look at it, and they just don't look at the floor for guys. Caleb Williams is a perfect example of a ceiling and floor guy, where we can look at Caleb Williams and go, the floor is pretty low for Caleb Williams. We understand he could be mentally, we don't know where he'll be. We know that he extends plays too often. We don't know if he'll be on track. We know there's systems that he probably wouldn't work well in. There's a lot of floor issues with Caleb Williams where he could be a bust. He also has every trait that you could want in a quarterback that could be great. So his ceiling is through the roof. That's why he's the number 1 overall pick, because no one's looking at the floor. They're only looking at how high that ceiling is. And I think that's when you look at all these guys, when you look at a Bo Nix right now, you say, left floor doesn't look that bad. But the ceiling, we kind of know what Bo Nix' ceiling is. We don't feel he's going to be that much better, but the floor. So he goes a little bit later when you say, well, we just need a guy, we can use and maybe we'll get something out of him. But they just don't. I don't think that when they're picking quarterbacks because they need them to win, they need them to win now, so you keep your job. It's not about the long-term health of the organization. It is about keeping my job. And if it's that way, I need ceiling. Floor doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, no, that's a great point about the ceiling. And Anthony Richardson.
Yeah,
he's a great example of that. It's just like we don't give a damn what the floor is. The ceiling is what counts. Because you know what they're looking for, though, Patrick. To your point, they're looking for the guy with the cape.
Yes.
I need a guy that can put the cape on and be Superman. And if you're looking at a guy with a really, kind of, I guess you're looking at the floor of it, then you're not paying attention to what they said, a guy that is capable of those superhuman moments on a football field. I love that. That was a great point there, Patrick. Good stuff. All right, we'll come back. We'll get into what the facts, what the stats segment on the other side. Got some factoids to share with you from all around the sports world and beyond. This is the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, coming right back on the Horn.